When our core wounds meet the physical world, it offers us the opportunity to heal from the trauma and the emotional wear and tear we have endured in this lifetime. How many core wounds are there to heal? In this podcast series, we will talk about them all, healing the emotional core wounding, including the mother wound, the primal wound, so we can walk in our medicine to be the healers that we all are. Join podcast host, confidence coach Susan Axelrod with her very special guest, Kornelia Stephanie. This podcast is one for the ages, living beyond the core wounds.
Hello, friends. I'm so happy to be with you here today for another episode of this amazing podcast. These conversations with Kornelia Stephanie are powerful, they're deep, and I got to be honest, they're staying with me. So we're doing this podcast because of the benefit that I myself have had from reading Kornelia's book called The Peace, The Flip Side to Anger, and from my own personal deep work that I've done with Kornelia over a few years. Now I'm learning it, I'm integrating it, and I'm bringing it in with my own clients. And I just simply couldn't be happier. You can see what's happening in my book with all the tabs, and I wanted to just share my biggest why of why I wanted to do this podcast and how it has this work has affected my life. So in Kornelia's book, she writes this: "You are responsible for your life, your happiness, your reactions, your actions, your relationships, your environment, your body." Hold on, I'm getting emotional. "Your health, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your nutrition, and your well-being." So in the world of work that I'm in and that Kornelia is in, crying is allowed. I just got emotional because this is so deep and so powerful to bring in your own opportunity from taking responsibility for your life. And that's what that quote means to me. It's the process of my own journey. But along the way, there are difficulties sometimes. And these difficulties can be created from what we call core wounds. And that's the stuff, the meat of our conversation today. So, my dear friend Kornelia, I already cried. I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm happy to have you here today.
So awesome, Susan, to be with you again and have this very important talk about living beyond the core wounding. You know, even today, like when I was thinking about this show today and thinking about what do I really want to highlight? What do I really want to talk about? It's really amazing what happens. And I know you've experienced this also. What happens when we really truly heal at the core level and we heal from the trauma, we heal the shadow, we heal the separation. When we heal at that core level, and like let's just say months go by, right, or years go by, it's really hard to get back into to think about what it felt like when that core wasn't healed. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I think that's why I just got so emotional when I was just reading that quote from your book. So it's hard to, when you're healed, when you've done the work, the healing work of which you speak. But of course, there's always new stuff that does come up, Cornelia.
Of course, I mean, but I want to, you know, when you were reading that quote, what was the word that triggered? Like, let's read that again, because I think there was something in there. What was it really?
So I'll read it again. Okay. You are responsible for your life, your happiness, your reactions, your actions, your relationships, your environment, your body, your health, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your nutrition, and your well being. And right away, you asked me just now, what was it that evoked that emotional response in me? And it happened again as soon as I said, I could feel the emotion in me. You are responsible for. Because so often, Cornelia, we might feel that we're responsible for all these things, but we feel that it's out of our control. And the work that you teach in the emotional processing, healing core wounds is all part of what brings it back into your control. And so that's what comes up for me when I read it, that the journey of my life, feeling more responsible for, and sometimes in control and not in control. And I tried to say it before, and I want to say it again now. If you're not aware of these core wounds of which we're speaking, then they control your life, right?
Well, they're in your field, and they're there for you to, it is going through the core wound, to the core wound, to through the core wound is where the light enters. It's where the love enters, right? So if that core wound, like we said in episode 1 and episode 2, when we introduced the core wounds and we're talking about what they are, and like I said, not everybody has all of them. Not everybody came in. I came in this incarnation to bring my conscious presence, my conscious awareness to all of these wounds and heal from these wounds in this lifetime. I came here to maybe I came to, cram it all into one, and, because we're talking about our ascension here. And when you're talking about reading that quote about I am responsible. I'm responsible for my own healing. I'm responsible for my own ascension. I'm responsible for anything that takes me out of my peace and that takes me out of my uh, true nature. I'm responsible for it because it's going to come in to my awareness to clear it, to transcend it, to move beyond it, not to take it on, but to, if it's there, if I'm seeing it, if I'm triggered, then it's in my experience, right? If I'm going to react to it and give my power away, that's what you were talking about a little bit ago when you're talking about the word control. We really don't have any control over anyone or anything, including everything that's happening in the world. We have no control over any of it. The only thing that we have is we have the power to realize that we ourselves have the choice in the moment to rise higher or go back down the rabbit hole.
I want to invite our viewers and our listeners to get a pen and paper, to listen to these words that we're sharing with you in this podcast series repeatedly. It sometimes takes time to learn a new language, a new way of being. I want to encourage you to listen to this, because what I want to say in response, Cornelia, to what you just said is, I'm learning this. I am learning this. I truly am learning that it's in my control how I feel. You said when you're triggered, I'm giving my power away.
Well, if you're triggered, it's really a good thing if you're triggered, because the trigger is the catalyst. It's the awakening. Whatever is the emotional trigger that's triggering you, there is an opportunity from a past life event. When I say past life, I don't mean in a literal past life, because it could have been something in this life, but
Right.
something that, because every event is basically neutral. Because if you don't have any trauma or cell memory stored in your physical body, then you wouldn't be reacting, because just one time, if something happened just one time and there's not an emotional charge, trauma, it left in the body, you wouldn't be reacting this way. So
Right.
that's why I can say to you that it's always, whenever we get emotionally triggered, it's always something from the past that's coming up to be healed. If it's in your awareness, if it's in your experience, it's there for you to uh, feel to heal, which is my mantra, which is what I, in order to really release it, you have to really feel it. And I think the part of, in our humanity, we've had a hard time wanting to feel all this pain, feel all the things that we've suppressed in our life for whatever reason, when we haven't felt safe, when we haven't felt honored, when we haven't felt being in an environment where we can heal. We haven't felt like it's been safe to do so.
So I just want to share that, just a very quick story about one of my clients who has a lot of trauma. A lot of trauma going back, trauma from the experience with the parents, with siblings, with themselves. And what you're just talking about, of not wanting to feel the pain and the anger, now the person has come forth into further trauma in relationship. And in the work with me, she said to me just the other day, it's been so helpful to work with you because it feels safe.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about. That's what you teach. That's what you offer. That's what you've done for me, of course, as well, personally speaking. And that brings us to what the core wound that we want to discuss today, which is the mother wound, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of safe. So I want to invite you to share with us this idea. We have planned for a 2-part episode on this discussion because it's so big, so deep, so important. Would you describe what you mean when you say the mother wound?
So the mother wound, I feel is a lot of us in this lifetime have come in to heal from this core wound, from this core mother wound. A lot of women, but men too. And we have come in to heal the distorted feminine, the feminine in our, in our life, and then also in our past life. If we look at our mother and our mother's mother, and how the unconditional love of the mother has been missing from our experience. The unconditional love from my mother's upbringing was missing. So my mother wasn't able to give me what it is that I needed as a child, because she also didn't get it as a child. So basically, the mother wound is active when we're looking at our childhoods. And we didn't, again, I think we talked about it with the emotional core wound of not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough, that the mother wound is activated in all of us, that as young children, we didn't get our emotional needs met. And, when we look at the mother wound, again, what is the most safest, the most beautiful, the most nurturing mother? What is the most safest, the most beautiful, the most nurturing energy? She's healing. She is safe. She is loving. She is compassionate. She is nurturing. And that is that energy. I mean, and when I look at the opposite of that, the wound, just think about the child that didn't receive any of those feelings, those nurturings, those, right? Think about, I mean, when I think about my mother, my mother was given up for adoption when she was a young child, and she grew up in East Germany, and she was given to a family that, to a family, and there was a lot of darkness there, oppression in that time period in the 1940s, right? And what they were going through. And so in East Germany. So and my mother was mistreated by the woman who adopted her. And so that created a lot of, again, feelings in my mother that she wasn't loved, that she was abandoned, that she wasn't wanted, that she wasn't needed, that she wasn't worthy, that she wasn't good enough. All of those kinds of feelings were played out in my mother's experience, right?
Yeah. I just want to say, of course, I'm taking notes. That's why I keep looking down. And the fundamental explanation of the core wound of the mother wound is not getting your emotional needs met. And then what you said was the idea that the mother of your mind, of the child mind, would be healing and nurturing and safe and loving and compassionate, right? And that the opposite is not those things. And when our own mothers are human, then they suffer, like you just shared about your mother. I have another client who, as a mature, full-on adult person, a mature person in middle-ish age, not a young person, so to speak, still has these triggers, and the that we just talked about before, that still gets emotionally charged by her own mother, even though she's a mother, she's a grandmother. And
Right.
this
So
is the perfect example.
yeah. So if you said, still gets emotionally charged, even at this stage in her life. So there's still an opportunity for your client to become the mother herself. So
Yeah.
that basically, and that's why we're naming this podcast, becoming the mother, becoming your own inner mother. And having that unconditional love, that unconditional compassion, that kindness, and that softness that you need to heal, and to heal, and the space to be, but really to feel what it feels like to not be heard, not be listened to, not be honored. When I sit there and I think about this for my mother or any other person, myself included, but even still to this day, having done so much healing on my own childhood trauma, which it was horrendous, the things that I've overcome as well. But still, once you heal it and you bring your beautiful heart energy, and you become the mother yourself, and you bring that beautiful healing into that core wound, that love, that unconditional love that you would have wanted to receive. And I like to think about it in the way of Mother Mary. So I like to perceive myself being held by Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, being held by the Mother of God, by the heart of God, the Mother of God, being held there. And that is where my nurturing, being completely connected to that energy, that is where my nurturing is coming, so that my wounded self is fully present of what she hasn't received, what she hasn't gotten. And then also my consciousness is with my Mother Mary, with my Mary Magdalene, with the Mother of God, in the heart of God. And from that space, now I'm being held, I'm being loved, I'm being accepted. Whatever my charges are, right? Whatever it is that I'm saying, that I'm crying about, whatever the wound is, so that the primal wound can be healed, that primal wound, and that we can return again to our innocence, right? We can return again to our innocence, and we can give ourselves what we didn't receive as children.
This is, again, I want to encourage people to review these words. These are short podcasts, they're 30 minutes, and they're intended to be that way so that you can listen in small amounts and listen again, think about what we're saying here, process what we're saying here, and begin to self-apply. So this idea, Cornelia, which I heard you say, I didn't really get, but now I'm a devotee of yours. I get it now. I've heard you say this so many times. I've heard you talk about it in so many other of your podcasts, your writings, just your natural business leadership in your group. But I'm saying for our listeners today, that whether it's Mary Magdalene, the Mother Mary, or the construct of your faith, whatever that deepest feminine is for you, then whereby you can actually heal, give yourself permission to feel these wounds and feel yourself held by that type of mother figure. And then you can heal, you can feel the healing. So did I get that right?
Yes, and it is exactly that, what you said. And how do we heal? How do we heal? We feel.
Mm.
How do we heal? We feel the pain, we feel the trauma, we feel the sadness, we feel the loss, we feel the injustice, whatever it is. We feel it. We feel it and allow our physical body to be fully consumed by that feeling without covering it up, without making it any different than what it is, to really be willing to feel it and to sit in it and allow the body, the consciousness, your whole beingness to be able to feel it. And what happens is that is when the greatest love moves through, because you are sitting with it all, you are feeling it all, and the feelings will change, and that pain won't last. It's like a storm, like a 24 to 48 hour storm that is emotional. It's like the cycle of the moon, to where we are sitting in the darkness, in the pain, with it all, and fully present, 100% fully present. And during that time, the only thing that we have to do is just sit with that and be with that and feel that. Not at all that you have to think of anything, not that you have to be anything different, just be that. And once that emotion passes through, once that 24, 48 hour period moves through, nowadays, it's so much quicker than it was back in the day, like 10 years ago when these wounds were being cleared. Nowadays, it's, I'm not even saying it's going to take 24, 48 hours. Nowadays, it can be a lot faster. It doesn't even have to be that long.
I want to verify this again. It's coming up again for me to say, wow, this is important to hear on repeat. And I want to verify what you just said, because sharing my own story, I've recently lost my husband only a few months ago. And while that makes this a, connected to time, which I don't usually do in the podcasts, it's relevant because I've been in the storm, the emotional loss. And I've learned from you already. So I know what you're talking about, to sit with it, to feel it. And I feel so lucky, in quotation marks, but it's not really luck. It's practice and commitment. And when you go through this process that Cornelia's sharing with us and describing, you rise in the light such that eventually what you just said is true. You can move through more quickly.
Yes, and I want to really make this point, and that is, during the time when you are feeling the loss, the pain, the grief, whatever it is, there is absolutely nothing else to do. You do not have to fix anything. You don't have to come up with a solution. You don't have to, because it's already too much. It's already too much. You
Yeah.
know, when we are in a time of deep grief and healing the core wounding, whatever it is, the only thing that's required of you is you being willing to bring your body and to sit with the pain.
Mm.
And that is all part of becoming the mother. It's like the mother and you are one, and you are holding your wounded child, you are holding yourself, and the mother again is not judging, is not saying, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you this, or you that. The mother is unconditional and just like God is unconditional with the energy of love and compassion. There is no should be doing anything differently. You should have done something differently. It's completely accepting, all encompassing love.
And so also along with the other things of what you would want with the unconditional love comes no judgment.
Exactly. No
Yeah.
judgment. No
No
judgment.
judgment. No judgment. I know.
Yeah.
I've learned that from you.
Yeah. It's no judgment, because that there's nothing to do but to sit here and feel. That in itself is, a lot to deal with at that time. So, that is the only job you have at that time, is just to be able to be in that. And then once, the storm is over and you've been through that process, then it's time to possibly bring your pen and paper, your journal, or talk to your coach or your person that you trust and talk about what was that about for you. How do you feel today? And this is what I mean by the self-realization. The being is realizing itself through having went through this pain, to feel the pain, to transcend the pain and move beyond it.
Wow. So in part 2, in the next episode, I want to invite people to tune into it as well, because we're going to talk about becoming the mother.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this. And again, now I've been with Kornelia for years, a few years, not just a few minutes or a few times. And so I've learned this and I get it. And I'm here to say this can be done. This can be. So one final very quick story, Kornelia. I was hired by a man, even though most of my clients are women. In the second half of life, I was hired by a man who was well into the second half of life. And when you talked about there's nothing to do but sit with it, he hired me because there was no place that he had found that where he could be in that safe and sacred space. He had been in therapy, he had been in a lot of places, but he had followed me, I guess, my language, whatever. And then I thought I would be working with him on another more physical area, let's say, the industry type business area. And then he said to me, no, I really want to do this with you. And then to speak to the only thing that is needed is to sit with it, sit with the pain, sit with the emotion, allow the storm. In his working with me as a coach, and I know that's what you provide, and we'll talk about those sessions in 1 second before we end, that's what was allowed in his time with me.
And you know what he loves so much is that he asked you for what he needed.
He did. He did indeed.
No, I want to do this with you. He asked, he knew, I want this. I need this right now. And because you've already done this healing work, and then just imagine what it's like for people that want to work with you, that want to work with me, that want to do this level of work. It doesn't have to take years and years and years. It can take, like I know the client you're talking about because you've told me about that experience, it took that weekend for him, and those few times where you all met on the phone, but he also came to have in-person sessions with you, right? And it took that time to really provide that space, that unconditional love space. That's why I know that the work that you do on yourself, the love story that you generate within your own inner being, within your own being, is the greatest love story that is ever told. And that is the energy that is rising all boats. That is the energy that is helping others heal, because you've given yourself permission to do this work. And now everyone else can rise to that level. And your client saying to you, no, I don't want to do the business work. I want to do this. I love that part.
Yeah, that was so great. So, friends, Kornelia offers sessions. It really only takes a few sessions when you're guided by someone who's in the mastery of this. And Kornelia is able to be contacted by her phone number. So, Kornelia, what's your number?
So the number is 360 area code 941-5783. And you can text me, and then we can figure out a time when it's good for you and me to come together to have a call. So the emotional core wounding, any of the core wounds that you may hear throughout these sessions, you might want to do some further clearing and healing for yourself, and I will teach you how to do it. Or you might want to bring this work into your practice, because you might be a healer and you might be doing different modalities, Reiki or other modalities where you're working with other people, and you might want to do this deep emotional processing work so that you can bring this to your clients as well, as Susan is doing. So it's that deep level of work, the emotional processing work, healing and living beyond the core wounds.
I love that you're just in real time being there, ready and available for people to do this. Friends, it may take a little bit of time for you, but I cannot tell you how much it will make a difference for you to get started. Kornelia, we're going to end this episode now, even though I don't want to.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back together again for part 2 of the mother wound, and we'll be talking about becoming the mother yourself. Thank you, friend.
Thank you.